In this video, we're going to be talking about Big Mama Thornton. So go ahead and make sure you've got the Big Mama Thornton questions assignment open on my MCPS classroom. I'll give you a second to open that on your computer. And we will go through questions 1 through 9 together. And then question 10 is one that you're going to kind of answer on your own while we listen to and watch a performance by Big Mama Thornton. So let's talk about our friend Big Mama Thornton. She's one of our famous blues performers. And we kind of already talked about when we went over the genre, the blues, and talked a little bit about cultural appropriation in the blues. So we'll remind ourselves about that kind of a thing as we talk a little more about her. So when she was born, her birth name was actually Willie Mae Thornton, and she develops her nickname a little bit later, and we'll talk about when that is and how that happened. And to answer question number 1, what year and city was Thornton born? She was born on December 11th, 1926 in Ayrton, I think is how you say this, Alabama. Ayrton, Alabama. So it's 1926, Ayrton, Alabama. Those are your answers to number 1. And her father was actually a minister and her mother was a singer, and both of them did those things in a Baptist church. So being a part of the Baptist church community was where Big Mama Thornton ended up getting a lot of her early musical experiences. So that's going to be your answer to number 2. Where did Thornton get her early music experience? It was in the Baptist church that her parents were both a part of. So I'll give you a moment to type that in. Where did Thornton get her early music experience? Baptist church. And we'll talk about this as we go along, but that was actually the only kind of version of musical training, if you could call that training, that Thornton ever received. She didn't go to school for music or anything. She just developed her own style from starting to sing when she was in church, and then when she was a kid, and then listening to other blues musicians allowed her to develop her own musical style. So let's talk a little bit about her early life. Like I said, she had 6 siblings, and they all sang from a very young age. So she just kind of grew up singing. And her mom actually died when she was only 14 years old, which was pretty traumatic for her. So after her mom's death, she ended up leaving school. So she's 14. She's maybe towards the end of what we know as 8th grade, beginning of high school. After her mom died, she dropped out of school. And she got an odd job, like a lot of our black jazz musicians did. She got an odd job, and hers was cleaning spittoons in a local tavern. And this is going to be your answer to number 3. What did Thornton do for work after dropping out of school? She cleaned spittoons in a local tavern. If you don't know what a spittoon is, that's literally just like a container that you spit into. And that was because that's more along the lines of if you were using chewing tobacco, then you need to spit. And that was the thing that was really common in taverns during this time period. So she was literally cleaning containers that people spit in. She was just doing that for money after she dropped out of school. And let's see, she was born in 1926. When she was 14, that would be 1940. So a little bit later, after she was doing some spittoon cleaning, she left home. And she joined, she had some help from another blues performer named Diamond Teeth Mary. Diamond Teeth Mary helped Thornton to join a group called Sammy Green's Hot Harlem Review. And this is in Georgia. So she's from Alabama. When she's 14, she starts cleaning spittoons, and then she decides that she wants to move to Georgia and join this blues performing group called Sammy Green's Hot Harlem Review. And she was billed as the new Bessie Smith. And Bessie Smith is just another really influential blues performer. And it was a big deal that Big Mama Thornton was starting to be billed as the new Bessie Smith, just because of like Bessie Smith's like talent and capabilities and all that. And Bessie Smith was a big influence on Big Mama Thornton's like singing personality and her whole style. And another person who influenced Thornton a lot was Memphis Minnie, is her name. Another prominent blues performer. So you could put either one of those performers for number 4. Number 4 says, what is one blues performer that influenced Thornton's style? One blues performer that influenced Thornton's style. So you could say Bessie Smith or Memphis Minnie. And let's talk a little bit about her early career. So she just moved from Alabama to Georgia in 1940. 8 years later, she moved to Houston, Texas to start her recording career. There were a lot of blues clubs in Texas and LA during this time that were known for like brass horns and really jumpy rhythms and wisecracking lyrics, where if you're the singer, you get to be just like kind of clever and a little bit sarcastic and that kind of thing. So she moved to Houston, Texas to start her recording career. In 1951, she got her first recording contract with a company called Peacock Records, and she performed at the Apollo Theater in 1952. And if you remember, we had a couple of other artists that we already studied when we were studying jazz who also kind of got their start at the Apollo Theater. Ella Fitzgerald was one of the ones that we studied, and she got her start because she won an amateur night at the Apollo Theater. So she literally began there. And you're going to find that a lot of artists, like early on in their career, performed at the Apollo Theater. If you don't remember, that's in New York City. It was a big deal that she got to do that. So 1951, how old is she at that point? She's 25? Yeah, she's 25 at this point. And in 1952, we already talked about this, but in 1952, she recorded the song Hound Dog. Hound Dog for Big Mama Thornton sold over 2 million copies, and it went to number 1 on the rhythm and blues chart, on the R&B chart, which was pretty cool. However, even though this song made a lot of money, and I don't know if this is because of her contract or just because of some other kind of stigma because of race, or I don't know what the reasoning is for this, but the song sold over 2 million copies and topped the R&B chart, and Big Mama Thornton only made like $500 off of that. Granted, obviously $500 is relatively more money in 1952 than it is now, but still, that is not a lot of money, especially when you consider that Elvis recorded the song 3 years later and sold 10 million copies, and actually did make a lot of profit off of it. And because of that kind of situation, which we talked about before, talked about that this is probably an example of cultural appropriation, which again depends on the context, and we don't know a ton about the context in which Elvis released the song, but it does look like he didn't necessarily give credit to Big Mama Thornton, and it was written for her specifically. And even though she didn't own the song because she didn't hold the copyright and all that stuff, it does still seem like this is an example of cultural appropriation. So it's unfortunate that nowadays, even though she was the one to sing it originally and it was written for her and her style and all that stuff, nowadays a lot of people don't know that the song was actually supposed to be an anthem of Black female power. Like, those are supposed to be where the lyrics take us and where the song takes us. And today, a lot of people just hear the song and hear the words, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. You ain't never caught a rabbit. You ain't no friend of mine," which are not even the original lyrics. So Anyway, that's just really a shame that she didn't get the like fame and acclaim that should have gotten off of that song. And we watched that performance of it, and it's just very stylistic. There's so much personality, and it's just very impressive. So post all of that, in the early 1960s, Thornton actually wrote a song herself. And I believe she kind of co-wrote this a little bit with Janis Joplin, actually. The song is called Ball and Chain, and that's going to be your answer to number 6. What song did Thornton write in the early 1960s? The title is Ball and Chain, and that's actually the song we're going to be watching a little bit later today in this video. And the label that recorded it chose, for some reason, not to actually release the song, but they did hold on to the copyright, meaning later Janis Joplin actually recorded the song, which Thornton gave her permission to do that. There was no like ill intention or anything like that. But Janis Joplin recorded the song, and since Thornton did not have the copyright for that, she did not receive royalties. She did not make any money off of Janis Joplin successfully performing that song. So, again, even though she wrote this incredible song for herself and kind of for Janis Joplin, she did not get a lot of the fame for that, which is unfortunate. And that's sounds like that's more from like a poor business decision kind of standpoint. I don't know anything about the contracts, again, that Thornton was receiving, but anyway, that's why part of the reason a lot of people don't know her today necessarily. Continue. So let's talk about Big Mama Thornton's style. This is something to kind of keep in your head for a little bit later when we watch this video of her performing. And you can put any of these for your answers. Number 7, describe one element of Thornton's style. She was known for having a really deep, really powerful voice. You're going to see that in the video we watch. But also, like in her performing stature and her performing personality, she just had like a really strong sense of herself. And that's kind of a weird thing to talk about if you haven't seen like people perform without that and people perform with that. But when you watch her, you can really see that in her performances, that she's just like, I'm going to be me, and I'm not going to let anybody change anything about that. I'm just going to be me on stage. And she was actually given the nickname Big Mama by the manager of the Apollo Theater. It was partially because of her super strong voice and also because of her size. She was a very large woman. And because of her like massive, like strong personality. So she liked the name, and she ended up being known as Big Mama Thornton instead of Willie Mae Thornton after her experiences at the Apollo Theater. And just to kind of give you an idea of like what she was like as like a singing personality, she was very anti-microphone. She stated that she was louder than any microphone, just like naturally, and she did not want a microphone to ever be as loud as she was. So you'll see and you saw this and you probably didn't think about it in the Hound Dog video we've already watched, but she does walk up to a microphone, but I'm not certain that it was actually on. Because while it looks like it's just kind of there for staging. Because while she's walking up to the microphone, she's already singing. And you can already hear her really well over all of the instruments because she has a massively strong, powerful voice, which is absurd. And you'll see more of that in the video that we watched today. So feel free to put any of those elements of her style on number 7. Describe one element of Thornton's style for number 7. So let's talk about her influence on the genre. She, just by being herself and being strong and performing and allowing herself to be seen, like with her strong sense of self and her personality, she changed traditional roles for African American women. She just kind of broke the stereotype of what a lot of people thought an African American woman like should be like during this time period. So her strong personality just refuted some of those stereotypes, and obviously we still experience those stereotypes today, and we're still like pulling out of that kind of a thing. But she was one of the performers that was able to help with that during this time period. She also had a strong influence on American popular music. Just because during that time period, we think of like blues would probably be considered pop music, and a little bit later, like rock and roll, and blues had a lot of influence on rock and roll, so that kind of comes from her. She probably would have had a bigger influence on the style if it weren't for the segregation of that era. That's just because she didn't have as much access to like broader audiences, both white and black audiences. And that might have been a barrier to her commercial success, like both as a vocalist and also as a composer. Because, like I said, she wrote the song "Ball and Chain," and it's very good. And she might have had a bigger impact if it weren't for. I would say she definitely would have had a bigger impact on the style and on music in general if it wasn't for the segregation of that time period, which is unfortunate to think about, but that is the history. That's where we were at during that time. So go ahead and make sure you've got one of those down for number 8. Describe one way in which Thornton received or influenced music or stereotypes. And let's talk about how we lost our friend here. She had still kind of had a career a little bit later in her life. After like blues is kind of starting to like lose like traction and just not be like quite as popular. Like rock and roll is starting to develop in the like 1960s kind of time period, so blues is fading a little bit. She was still performing around San Francisco and the Los Angeles area, and she made some more recordings. She toured in some blues festivals. She was also one of very few like successful women in the blues genre. Like blues was mostly dominated by black men. So it's cool for her to just have this like incredibly strong personality and this like I don't care what anybody else thinks attitude in an industry that was dominated by men. And like I said, late 1960s, the hype for the blues is kind of starting to fade because it's kind of turning into like now everybody's really into rock and roll. In the late 1970s, Big Mama Thornton had like a pretty heavy drinking problem just throughout her life, and it started to really kind of affect her in the 1970s and started damaging her health a lot. She started to experience the effects of having been a heavy drinker for a long time. She was still kind of touring through the US and Canada during this time, but she did end up passing away on July 25th, 1984. She was 57 years old. And it was because of her heart and liver disorders, because of her long-standing alcohol abuse, which is very sad. She also had just some crazy weight loss right before her death. Like I said, she was a large personality, large voice, and also just a very large woman. She was 450 pounds and lost 355 pounds before her death. She went from 450 to 95 pounds, which clearly is not healthy. Like there was something going on. So right before her death, she's experiencing like issues from just being a heavy drinker for such a long time, lost a lot of weight, died at age 57 in 1984. And that was the end of our friend Big Mama Thornton. And that's going to be your answer to number 9. Number 9 says, what was the cause of Thornton's death? And you can say heavy drinking, heart and liver disorders, however you want to describe that for number 9. And we are going to watch a live performance by Big Mama Thornton. This is the song Ball and Chain that she wrote. And it's with a band called Buddy Guy's Blues Band. And it is kind of a long song. Just kind of prepare your brain. But listen for like the different musical things that we talked about that we find in the blues that we talked about with the genre. So you're going to hear her do a lot of like, sometimes she's speaking some words or like almost shouting some words to like get the emotion of the song. Instead of singing them, you're going to hear her like growl some words, just like really getting her like voice up in there. And, you're going to hear her like pitch bend. And any of those things you can put for number 10. You're just going to describe one musical observation. So either talk to me about the lyrics, talk to me about the pitch, talk to me about her vocal tone, talk to me about the rhythm. Give me some musical observation of this performance by Big Mama Thornton here.
Big lady, Big Mama Thornton. Can I have you up here, Big Mama? I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure to me to have to be with Buddy Guy since 1965 in Europe. This is a song I wrote, made famous by me and Janis Joplin. I wrote this tune called Ball and Chain. I hope you like it. Sitting by my window, whoa, I was looking out at rain. Sitting by my window, Lord, looking out at rain. And you know, something struck me. Whoa, clamped on like a bowling pin. I want to tell you about it. Now listen. I said, oh, baby, why you wanna do this mean things to me? I said, oh, baby, why you wanna do this all mean things to me? Because you know I love you, and I'm so sick and tired of being in misery. All right, I just want you to play your soul, buddy. Lord, like a ball I know you're gonna miss me, baby. Lord, I say you're gonna miss all of those sweet things. Oh, I know you're gonna miss me. Lord, all of those sweet things. And then you find out your heart will be like mine. Whoa, wrapped up just like that old ball and chain. Whoa, whoa, yeah. Hey, baby. Why Oh yeah, oh yeah. I know it's gonna lie great day in the morning of for eternity. Ball and chain, great day in the morning. Turn, just turn me a ball and chain.
Yeah! That's Big Mama Thornton. She got so much style and like a crazy amount of power. I do think in this video the microphone is actually on and she is actually using it. It sounds like it's in a bigger venue where maybe that kind of thing was necessary. But I swear in the Hound Dog video it sounds like her mic is off and she's still heard over instruments, which is absurd. So go ahead and make sure you've got down for number 10 and describe one musical observation of Thornton's performance of Ball and Chain. So you can tell me about the lyrics, which are difficult to understand, but you can kind of tell what the content of the song is about just by the way that she sings it. So tell me about the lyrics or the content. Talk to me about the pitch. Did you hear her riff at all? Did you hear her pitch bend at all? I hope you did, because those things happened almost every other moment. Talk about her, like, actual personal singing tone. We've talked about different ways to describe tone before. Talking about the rhythm of the song. Any other musical observations you could think of are totally fine, but go ahead and describe one to me, and then you can go ahead and hit submit.